Because they're prioritizing the wrong things.
Or they're growing the wrong way, or, they think that the path to a more lucrative project, job, margins, whatever that may be, are something different than what they're doing. And they're just throwing hours and throwing sweat equity at their business to try and figure out what sticks and what works. So I think that, you should be careful of that. I wouldn't base that somebody spending a lot of time working and really put the hours into the day and grind. I don't think that dictates whether you're successful or not.
Welcome back to the Modern Craftsman podcast, guys. Today I'm going to read 2 really mean DMs I got.
One might be meaner than the other.
One is definitely meaner than the other.
One is more of a personal attack.
Personal, and I am not well. I am unwell at this point. But you guys submitted some questions or statements that we're going to respond to and to dig into it. But overall, really, hopefully giving you clarity. Because I think a lot of you guys listen for the sake of the fact that you feel as though you're kind of stuck. I know a lot of you guys email us and communicate that, hey, the podcast has helped me, or recently we got a really difficult email that said that they're going to be closing their business, and we wanted to dig into some really hard-hitting questions today that could potentially, and I think will provide the clarity that you are looking for, and that I know I certainly was at one point. But before we get into it, make sure you head over to moderncraftsman.co, sign up for the newsletter. We're launching a monthly workshop, which is completely free, where we're going to dig into very specific stuff for business, help you guys grow and build better and more profitable businesses. And the only way to get access to that is by being part of our newsletter. And that is on our website. There's a link in our Instagram. Find the link, sign up for the newsletter, and we will see you there.
This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. If you're building with vinyl windows, there might be a better option that could actually help you save time and costs over the long run. Andersen 100 series products are available at a comparable price to vinyl, but they're also made with material that's designed to be better in extreme temperatures. One way they're able to do this is using innovative Fibrex composite material instead of vinyl, which is twice as strong and has the ability to hold up to high heat even in dark colors. And unlike some other vinyl alternatives, Fibrex composite material has a smooth, consistent finish that looks great in a variety of homes. This is why Andersen 100 series products are known as the smart alternative to vinyl. For more information, head over to andersenwindows.com/moderncraftsman.
This podcast is also brought to you by Buildertrend. Here's a real talk moment. Growth is great until your systems can't keep up. And if you're juggling projects with spreadsheets, group text messages, and whiteboards, it's only a matter of time before something slips. Buildertrend's construction software brings it all together. Your budgets, your schedules, your team, and your clients all in one spot. It's like finally getting your business together without duct tape. Schedule a demo at buildertrend.com/MC demo and see how the pros scale without the chaos. Trust me, your future self will thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Velux. Velux's cut, place, and seal installation makes adding skylights to your build easier than ever. Experience worry-free installation with 3 layers of leak protection, solar panels, and built-in rain sensors, and leave your clients speechless. Include skylights in your next project and visit veluxusa.com/remodeler to learn more about their industry-leading warranty.
And lastly, this podcast is also brought to you by Harnish Workwear. Maintaining a professional appearance and consistent branding on a job site can increase your effectiveness by 23%. Harnish Workwear understands the importance of branded apparel. Their H-Label program, which is what I'm wearing right now, offers elevated customizable work uniforms. Whether it's through embroidery, print, or custom patch applications, they'll collaborate closely with you to ensure your team exudes a cohesive and polished appearance. Their team of skilled in-house printers and designers deliver customized gear fully prepared for use. So head over to harnishworkwear.com to elevate your brand.
I feel badly because I have a lot of friends who don't have hair, and I'm always complaining that I have way too much hair, and they're like, "You're such an ass,
dude."
I'm like, I don't know.
Let me read you a comment I got
annoying.
Yesterday on Instagram. I hate to say it, but Nick, you should probably give up the fight with the hairline. Shaking my head. It's a losing battle, brother. And you'd look way better just shaving it down at this point. I was like, thanks, brother.
I feel like your hairline hasn't changed.
That's what I think, but now I'm like overly self-conscious. I'm like, should I fly to Turkey and get my hair like brought down to here?
Maybe. Dude, just draw it in. Is there anyone bald in your family?
My dad has like basically my hairline, and it just continues to get thinner. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. I'm sure my hair is getting thinner.
Dude, I didn't realize how, like, people who go bald typically go bald. I didn't realize how young they typically start going bald. Like, pretty shortly at, like, people who are going to be fully bald, it's pretty shortly after high school.
Yeah.
That they start balding. Like, it's a lot of times in your early 20s, and I guess I never realized that. I had to get a haircut. I was out in Cleveland. I had to film some stuff with Fine Home Building and Loctite, and I was like, every other time I've gone out there, my hair is either overgrown, blonde, unacceptable, and I was like, I'm gonna get my hair cut. So I got my hair cut, and I went out there, and they were like, no hat this time. I was like, I brought a hat if you want me to. And then they had to like poll everyone and ask them if they wanted me to wear a hat, because I always have a hat on. They're like, no, you're fine without the hat. I was like, all right, cool.
That's the funny thing about when you're doing like professional content is they're like, hey, make sure this is what you wear because that's what you wore last time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I never thought about the fact that you're cutting this together.
I don't know. I just always wear hats at work too. I think like, I don't know. It's more comfortable. I don't like wearing sunglasses, so I can use the hat to kind of.
Dude, sunglasses make me sleepy.
Really? I can't. I think that it's like if you've ever skied, they will sell tinted lenses, and they're fine as long as you keep them on. But like as soon as I take them off, I like don't like sunglasses if it's not sunny. So if I'm in and out of sun, as soon as there's no sun, I have them on. I have to take them off, and then my eyes just never adjust. So I'm like, I think I'll rather just squint through it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a hat over sunglasses. Like if I put sunglasses on when I'm driving, it literally makes me want to fall asleep.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, I know some people who put sunglasses on and just don't take them off, and the only time I ever really use them if I'm somewhere where I'm sitting like an athletic event where I'm sitting in the same spot and I don't have to take them off for like an hour. If not, they just feel like a pain in the ass to me, and I can't see.
I think I said it before. It's funny that my kids, when they draw pictures of me, I have a hat on.
Yeah.
Because I don't wear a hat except for when I'm basically like when I'm scrubbed down and I'm just chilling. It's like then I usually put a hat on. But at work, I almost never have a hat.
Yeah. I wonder, people probably think that I'm balding because I always have a hat on. Like I always wear a hat to the girls. I coach Selby's team, and I always have a hat on because it's either after work or like I don't ever do my hair. So I came to a game once with like when my hair was longer and it was done because I had to do something, and all the parents are like, whoa, who knew that you had this like full dad flow of hair under there?
You sent a couple questions, and I also had one that was a pretty no BS kind of hard hitting question that I thought we should maybe dig into.
All right, let's do it.
If you're such a great builder and businessman, then why are you still grinding 60 hours a week and constantly putting out fires? Don't you think you should be further ahead by now?
Is this directly to you?
Yeah.
Was it like a listener or?
I would assume, yeah, someone that follows the content.
So it was like a comment on one of your posts?
It was a DM.
Yeah. Damn.
I know. I read that.
Little trolling.
Well, you know what? But is it like, I feel like there's definitely truth in that, right? I'm still grinding 60 hours a week, as we see, pulling my hair out. I'm going to be so self-conscious about this now.
Dude,
like, where are you? Oh, I'm in Turkey getting my hair fixed.
No, it's so funny because my one friend, Dom's bald, and I'll send him these videos where they have these, like, it'll be painters on a job, and they'll tape somebody's head and just use the airless and just tape their face off and just spray it black. And I send it to him all the time. I think that's what we should do. Dude, it's funny that you say that because I actually just recorded a midweek this morning because I was away. And a lot of it was based on like what your time's worth and how you're capturing hours and how you're accounting for your time and how that's changed from when I first started in business to where I am now. And I think like part of the change in like the simplest thing is just everyone says we'll charge more money. And I think that if you increase your rate or whatever you're charging or your markup, I think that that's not fixing the problem. Like that the lack of rate is a symptom of bigger issues. And I think that we're just going to charge a higher percentage or I'm going to charge more as an hourly rate is not really a fix. I think that it's a step in the right direction, but there's bigger issues, like bigger fundamental issues than if it were just I'm going to add $20 to my hourly rate and that's going to fix all of my issues. I think that it would be so simple. So I think that conversation leads to like how you're evolving as a business, where you came from, where you stand now, and where you intend to go. And I don't disagree with the listener's comment, but I also think that it depends on what you want out of your lifestyle and what makes you tick, because I personally think that a lot of what you do is what you want to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, like there specifically like the 60 plus hours a week, I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
Even when I'm old and wealthy, like I'm still going to be grinding it out. Like I thoroughly enjoy that part. But I think we all can attest to the fact that there's days where it's like I feel like I should be further along. And so I've reflected on this quite a bit recently. I was listening to actually Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, and he was talking about, I forget exactly how he described it, but basically we delay gratification because we say we'll work really hard right now, so then eventually we're happy, and then when we're happy, we wish we could go back to when we were working really hard. And it's just like we basically never accept the fact that we are in the golden ages.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I try to remind myself constantly. It's like, listen, don't delay being happy because you think you need to accomplish something and then eventually you'll be happy, because as we know, we move the goalpost constantly, right? But I will say that when I read that, where it really kind of hit home is that what you were getting at, it's not just about charging more money and like everything is fixed, because we've all done that. And even on the personal side, there was a period of time where I was just getting behind in my finances. Like everything else, like I was just, bills were stacking up on my desk and I was like, I'll get to them later. And I mean, this happens every so often. And I'll just talk about the most recent. Like I walked out to my truck last week and my truck's booted. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, why? Like, and sure enough, like one of the dads from school texts me. He goes, is that your truck? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you're an idiot. I'm like, I am an idiot. And I look it up and I get $1,200 worth of tickets. And Meg and Julian, they're like, how did you not know? I'm like, I just didn't. And sure enough, like I go through the mail on my desk the other day and I'm like, here's the $1,200 invoice that came 30 days ago. But my point with this is this stuff piles up, and every day I was looking at it and I'm like, man, like who knows how many, thousands of dollars are sitting in bills right there that I'm just like ignoring because something else is taking my attention. And it started building this like insane amount of stress in my mind that because it was so stressful, I just kept putting it off. So the other day I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm doing two things today. I'm going to go through every piece of mail and make sure I'm caught up on everything. And I'm going to go through my entire email inbox and make sure I'm caught up on everything. That's it. And I sat down and I created a spreadsheet, and it was like a robust spreadsheet. I'm like, I'm going to know everything about everything. Like when money's owed to me, when I owe everything. Come to find out, I didn't know that much.
Yeah.
There's a handful of invoices in that pile, and most of them were paid.
Yeah.
And I remember like finishing that. And I'm like, I feel substantially better and I've done nothing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with business, right? Where it's, we charge more money because we need to, because we're moving so fast and we're trying to get work done. And I need to go sell a job, because if I don't sell a job, I can't pay for my guys. But you got to kind of ignore all that for just a moment and understand exactly where you stand today. Because if you don't, and this goes back to what I think we were talking with Matt Arnold, is that you have to understand where you're going, but until, like, you can't understand where you're going until you understand where you're at right now. And that's personal and professional. It's like, it's very difficult. And then again, tied back to like the happiness mantra, is like, it's very difficult to be happy if you're stressed out. And it's very difficult not to be stressed if you don't understand where you stand, what is in front of you right now, and what your responsibilities are.
You have to understand what your goals are in business. If one of your goals is not to work less, working 60 hours a week can be irrelevant. If your goal is to continue to grow your business, where every day it's different than it was the day before, you're going to have to invest considerable time into that business, because there's really no benchmark or metric that you can base the success of your business off of, because it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. And that's one of the dangers that I find in rapid growth, is that you're relying on other people's numbers, other people's experiences to really quantify your success. And if you don't perform consistently, if the numbers, the bottom line, the margins are always changing, then it's very difficult to gauge your success. There's really no benchmark. So, if you're telling yourself, I'm making X amount, and you aren't factoring in how many hours you're working, then yeah, I think that that's an issue. But if those aren't part of your goals, and your goals are just constantly refining what you're doing, and you're not necessarily basing that off of a time investment or financial metric, then I mean, it is irrelevant, and I don't know how much it matters. For me, I think the important thing is to understand that, right? If you're ignorant to the amount of time that you're investing, or you're investing that amount of time because you feel that you're underwater and you're trying to make up for it, I think that that's one thing. But I think that if it's something you want to do, as with what you said, right, there's a lot of people who are uber successful who would never have to work another day, let alone hour in their life, that still probably wake up and put 12 hours into their day every day with work related stuff, because that's just what drives them and that's what they do. And it would be not only incorrect but foolish to say that they're not successful business owners.
Right.
I do think that there is value and credibility to that statement for probably most people who are struggling through business and spending 80 hours a week and only getting paid for 20 hours.
Right. Well,
that's a major issue.
Yeah, and because they're prioritizing the wrong things.
Correct. Or they're growing the wrong way, or they think that the path to a more lucrative project, job, margins, whatever that may be, are something different than what they're doing. And they're just throwing hours and throwing sweat equity at their business to try and figure out what sticks and what works. So I think that, yeah, you should be careful of that. But I wouldn't base that somebody spending a lot of time working on their success or lack of success. There's a lot of people who their goal is to make enough money that they don't have to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's completely different. But there's some people that find passion and a lot of self-worth and just overall enjoyment in life and continuing to refine and invest their time and really put the hours into the day and grind. And I don't think that dictates whether you're successful or not.
Yeah, it's, I think for me and for a lot of people, like I said, reading that comment makes me reflect on what I have been thinking a lot about and just where my priorities lie. And I mean, even as simple as answering, this might come out the wrong way. Well, whatever. Answering questions, answering DMs, like people constantly. I have a handful of people that reach out to me, and the only thing they ever say is like, "Hey, do you have XYZ?"
Yeah.
And it's never anything else. It's always like, "Can you help me with?" And they interestingly, the two of them messaged me the other day, and I'm like, I'm just like, I'm not, I can't, I got to just say no to this shit.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm in the middle of something. They're asking me for help. It's constantly one sided, and you know, it's frustrating because I know that where my priorities need to be, and I need to focus on the stuff that is moving the needle. And I think I forget when I did this, but I created this. This is a sheet of paper for those who are listening, but it's basically like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Here's what you focus on. And so when I come in the office, that's the first thing I look at. It's like, all right, today, for example, today, like we're recording a podcast. It's Friday, which is not typical, but today I'm supposed to only focus on my branding and personal growth. And it gives me like a bullet list of things that I should focus on. And the purpose in doing that was so that I would have a goal that was, achievable, and I was making progress on it. So each week there would be this forward progress on the brand. There would be this forward progress on, pipeline. Wednesdays is my pipeline day. So I'm going back and making sure I'm doing all my follow up with potential leads. And, I was just on a phone call with an architect before we started recording, and he was asking about business development and how we handle new projects and pipeline. And I was explaining to him how my brain is all over the place today. I was explaining to him how ever since I've been doing this, there's been this like immediate response to it. And one of these days is focused strictly on marketing, and then the lead and pipeline, the lead follow up and pipeline build. And by focusing on them for an entire day for the last few weeks, we have more people reaching out and more people being aware of what we're doing. And because previously, I can summarize the way I felt about it is that it would be like I'm taking my foot off the gas. I'm like throttling up and down based on what I think I should be doing or what I feel like doing, rather than saying this is a thing I'm supposed to do and I need to make progress at this. So let me dedicate some time to actually making progress.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's oftentimes people don't realize just how small, consistent effort can make such a big, a big difference.
I think a lot of times in life, I always will relate stuff to analogies or another profession or industry. And to me, it's like when you think about driving and racking miles up on a car, those miles are from like your small everyday little trips, not trips across the country, right? And I think that in order to accumulate those large changes or actual progress, it has to be small, incremental contributions to whatever you're doing. Just like finances, right? If you want to save money, very few people are going to win multi-million-dollar lottery. It's like the small, incremental, day-to-day contributions that you make that actually make a difference in what you're doing. I had a few more listener questions that we can dive into that are kind of, we're going to go into these a little bit cold, but what's something that you believed about running a business in year one that you've completely changed your mind about?
Well, the obvious one is that you'd have more free time.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be my own boss. I'm going to make my own schedule.
Yeah.
I think if I think deeper at that, it's that in year one, I expected to have figured out how to run the business.
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, a year will give me plenty of time to get this stuff in place. And I think I know the reality is if I had spent a year consistently building that, sure, but I didn't. I spent a year working and dedicated a handful of days trying to clean stuff up. And when you do that for, a decade, those cleanup days slip further and further in the wrong direction. Um, so yeah, I think I completely underestimated how much time and effort it would take to really set the business up to operate appropriately.
Yeah, when I think back to first starting my business, I think that my experience, everyone I had worked for, I think that the general notion was that you had to land jobs based on price and fitting the bill as far as client price, which I still think is true today. But I also, that price doesn't necessarily have to be the least expensive price. It has to align with a lot of their other goals and values. But I can recall sending estimates, meeting with clients, and just being so nervous that I was going to send a price that was too much and that they
Mm.
were going to think I was expensive. And I was so far from that. But I guess, the clients that I was being marketed towards, and when you're first in business, the jobs that you're landing typically are because you're somewhat of a bargain. So I think the biggest thing for me, and just mindset as far as industry goes, and the industry that I'd been brought up working in since I was a young kid, was that you got to fit that price point for clients. And if you don't, there's no way that you can get that job. So for years, I was doing things to bring my price down. Whether it was, hey, we don't have to use a plumber on this job, because if you're only getting 10 grand for this bathroom, how can I pay 2,500 of it to a plumber when I just start out? So things like that, where it's like, how can we really squeeze this price down as much as possible to get work, where I realized that, I'm just selling to the wrong clients in the first place. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing there.
Yeah. It's I mean, there's so many things that I think we underestimate going into this. And the other component of that is we go into it thinking we want one thing and we immediately change our mind. It's like, oh, I'm just going to be a small carpentry company. And then it's like, you want to build my house? It's like, yeah, I'll be a builder. And you're constantly changing or moving the goalposts, and you're trying to do that and build systems around what you're doing. I mean, I think it's a big reason why Spencer is so successful.
Yeah.
He is who he is. His business is exactly, Spencer Lewis is who I'm talking about. And he has just built systems around that.
Yep.
But if he had, I think he talked about that on one of the podcasts when we had him on, is that when he hired someone, he wasn't any more profitable. And it was because he was changing his business, and everything else had to change.
Yeah, it's crazy that you don't realize that. And I think that takes me back to what I speak to a lot of people about, where it's like, if you have a handle on your business, like, first off, you have to have a handle on your business where you stand now. If you want to grow, if you want to make a change, like, you have to be profitable now. You have to understand where you stand, what type of jobs that necessitates. But I think that it also is critical for understanding, once you do make the move, if it's profitable, if it's working or not, because again, you have some sort of benchmark to go off of to say, hey, this is worse, this is better, I understood where I was before, and now this is what this is how all of this is winding up, what the numbers look like, what's wrong, what's better, what's worse. And you have that juxtaposition where I don't think that you can understand how those decisions and how those changes impact your business real world until you understand where you are. And I think that it gives you something to compare against and something to make changes with, either for the better or for the worse. But I see so many people where it's like, I need to make more money, I need to make a change. And to me, it's like, to make that change is probably only going to magnify your issues and your shortcomings. Like typically, if your business isn't successful doing $500,000 worth of work, doing $1 million worth of work is not going to make it more successful. It's probably going to make it less successful.
Let's dig into specifically when we say you need to know where your business stands and how you do that, because I was did a webinar yesterday with a group from QuickBooks and Intuit, and we were talking about this. And one of the things I had recommended is having some sort of dashboard. And I talked about the fact that, I mean, my team, Julian, Tim, and me, have been building this dashboard for over a year, and it became this insanely complicated thing. But it was trying to tell me everything at once. And if you relate it to like a car, when you're driving down the road, the thing that matters the most is typically your speed limit, right? You could argue how much
or
fuel
if you paid your parking tickets.
That doesn't tell me that on the dashboard, but that's actually a good reference point. Like it should, where it's like that's information that is relevant, but not showing up on the dashboard. And, and when I relate it back to business, it's, well, what do you need to understand about your business? You need to understand, number one, at a project level, are your projects profitable? Let's just talk about one single project. Because if you don't know if a specific project is profitable or not, then you don't know if then you're robbing from other projects that make it look like you're all of these projects are great. And so how do you do that, right? Like you understand what your labor actually cost. We talk about labor burden. If you guys go to our website, we have an Excel calculator on there that helps you calculate your labor burden. You can download that for free. But that was something that we screwed up bad, like early on. We were billing out guys at rates that weren't covering what the true cost of that person was. And we didn't know. So it's like every hour this guy worked, it was costing the company $5. It's like, well, it's only $5. It's like times 40 times 52 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that adds up real quick. Material procurement. I think it was, what year was that? 2020, I think. We did an audit and we went backwards and realized that we had $100,000 worth of purchases made in a 12-month period that were not accounted for against the job. So they were written off as overhead, like just miscellaneous tools. And we actually ended up downloading the majority of those receipts. They were at, big box stores and things like that. They were like $5, $45, all like miscellaneous everything under $100 basically. And when we went through them, we realized all of this stuff was job costs. So that was $100,000 right off the bottom line that we just never got to bill for because they were small purchases that no one thought was really important. And so for us, we basically said we are going to have a strict process. And I think we dubbed it like you spend it, you send it, meaning if you spend the money, you send the receipt. And for 2 or 3 years, we essentially had this missing receipt report that when a receipt didn't have an attachment on it, a report would go out to the whole company and it would say whose card it was. No one wanted their name on that report.
Yeah.
So it really instilled everyone to like the pressure to make sure that they were capturing it. And the following year, we had like less than $5,000 of missing receipts.
So that being said, this is obviously cost plus, but regardless.
Well, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. So that's what I'm like. Regardless, this is a shortcoming on the budget end of things as well, right? Where it's like, what's that conversation like, or how are you handling that internally? Because I'm assuming that it's not just like, oh yeah, we could have added $30,000 to 3 projects and we would have been fine. How are you accounting for that from a budget perspective to ensure that that's accounted for in the jobs? Because it's to say, A, they were $100,000 short. If those projects wouldn't have allowed you to charge the additional money, or you wouldn't have been able to manage that budget to account for that.
Well, that's the last point. That's the last point I was going to make is like the budget overruns is the last
Yeah.
thing, where, fixed costs would be a great example where if you're spending money and you're watching your framing line item deplete, every week or every day, hopefully every day, like you can just see how much money you've spent against it. When you're running out of cash, it's just like a personal, like when you don't have much more, if you don't have any money in your wallet, you're going to stop spending. And or as that money like reduces, you only have $20 left, like you're probably not going to go out and spend the $20 I can't say that word.
Frivolously.
Frivolously. God,
Frivolously.
forget it. Willy-nilly, I'll call it. But so that, like, those three things, you implement those three things and you'll feel way more confident about where your project stands. To your point, the $100,000, that's a lot of money. And could we have billed on those jobs? Probably. They were multi-million-dollar projects and they were spread out across like 8 jobs.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just one job. And um or there was probably a lot of things that were bought that didn't need to be bought, where that particular site super, if they knew they were spending, if they had spent all these little micro purchases, but their miscellaneous line item on the budget was being depleted, they would look at that and say, you know what, I guess I don't really need a new shop vac. I'll drive to the city and grab the one out of the storage unit rather than buy one.
Yeah.
And that's, and because it's exactly what I'm trying to do as a business is like, where do I stand as a business? The whoever's running that job needs to understand where the job stands, and they're going to make decisions based on where the job stands. It's like, hey, I got this much money to do this task. And it's like, and that's it. I don't have more money. There's not more money I can go ask for. I was told I have X amount of dollars for this particular task, and it's my job to get it done.
And I think that really reaffirms what I was saying about, like, you can't always just tap into more budget, right? Like, you can't just say, hey, we need to make more money, we can charge more money, because that's not always the case. There's a couple of ways to make money. The one is sell more, or spend less. Yeah. So it's the same thing when you're managing a budget for a project, because at the end of the day, the budgets for a project are our bottom line. But if you can't increase budget, if you can't sell more, what are you doing to protect your margins on that project and not go over budget? Is it through efficiency? Is it through better systems? Is it through tracking those budgets more appropriately to understand, like, hey, yeah, my super understands that we only have X amount in consumables, and that's 90% gone. So we need to scrape together to figure out where all this stuff is, or how we can meet this budget, rather than say, hey, we can just go spend this much more money on that, or understand where that's coming out of from another line item in that budget. I think that for me, that's pretty easy to manage based on my scale. But I think that the challenge is when it's not just you and there's many other people managing those projects and having a hand in those projects, and there's communication breaches and systems that aren't robust enough to support all of those decisions while maintaining efficiency. I think that's the struggle for people with growth and with change, and having some sort of metric to go off of. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. There's a lot of people involved and a lot of moving parts to manage all of that.
Yeah.
For me, it's fairly simple. It's me managing those numbers. It's me analyzing those numbers, maintaining the budget, the communication, and obviously I'm limited as to the amount of work that I can do. But that being said, there's also not a lot of waste.
Right.
So I'm limiting my exposure, I'm limiting my damage, and I'm able to guarantee my profits through efficiencies and through managing that really day to day to guarantee my profits. Where I think a lot of people, there's some fluff, there's some burden involved there, and I think that it becomes tough to manage. And when you have $100,000 across 8 jobs at the end of the year, that's a lot of money that's coming out of our revenue. That's coming out
Right.
of our bottom line at the end of the day. And when you're operating in an industry with tight margins and a very competitive industry, I don't care how big you are, $100,000 can affect a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of being a solopreneur is that you like you said, you don't have a lot of waste or in other words, a lot of overhead,
Yeah.
and it's money in, money out. And I think when these guys, you know, go from a single man show to then starting to hire employees, there's this disconnect from job profitability to business profitability.
Yeah.
And I know I faced it. We were we were really profitable on projects. So individually looks great, but really profitable on projects still only equals so much cash.
Yep.
And at the end of the year, it's like, if we're spending all of that cash or spending more than that cash, then now the company's not profitable. And I think for the latter part of the last decade, that's where I was just overspending my overhead. And I'd like to sit back and say it was all strategic and it was part of the growth. But no, there was definitely some foolishness to it where it's, I was doing things that were bigger and grander than I probably should have. And did they pay off in the long run? Sure, I guess you could say that. But the reality is I wasn't going into it knowing that I should be spending this much on marketing, but instead I'm spending that. It was just I'm just going to spend it and figure it out, and which is a terrible piece of advice. We know what we spend on marketing, and if I'm going to overspend, it's not I'm not saying I won't overspend on marketing, but what I am saying is that I know I'm overspending on marketing.
Yeah, and how are you gonna account for that? How are you gonna make up for that, or where are you gonna borrow from,
Right.
so that you're just not completely going in the red?
Right.
Um, Spoiler alert: Mark Williams wrote a bunch of questions for our Omaha trip that's coming up.
Yeah.
I was reading through them today, and one of the questions that caught me off guard, where I was like, I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but it was, if you were given $100,000 to spend in your business or on your business, what would you do with it? Like if you were handed 100 grand today. And now I think I might have a better idea, but I think that was a difficult question.
Yeah.
But my mind goes towards, and I think it's just based solely around my type of business where I'm looking to leverage the lean nature of my business and efficiencies, and really just trying to create higher profitability and not necessarily increase sales. Like a lot of people would be like, I'd dump it into marketing, right? Where at the end of the day, you're looking to increase sales. And in order to increase sales, you have to put more people in place to generate more of that work. So for me, I look at it more like, how could I put $100,000 into the business that will increase my margin? So for me, it's like potentially equipment, or processes that would allow me to complete the amount of work that I want to do in a shorter amount of time that costs me less money to put that work in place.
What equipment? Like, what's your immediate thought there?
I don't know with regard to me specifically, but like what came to mind is, and this is somewhat random, but on my business Instagram profile, this dude came up. I think I sent you this, and he's a tree guy.
Mm.
And like, you think most tree guys, right? You need how many people to handle tree work, right? That's
Yeah.
not by yourself. And this guy, instead of hiring people, he bought a truck that the bed and the cap can come off of. He has a trailer. He can put his chipper into this. He bought a mini excavator that he customized a trailer for, so he can literally go climb a tree, cut a tree down, get in his excavator, put it on this trailer, put it in his chipper, and perform this tree work really with minimal physical effort with a very low overhead, liability, and risk from an insurance perspective and employees, and make great money, not having to put a ton of work into place as far as like volume and tree people. So to me, that's like he's creating higher margins rather than looking to sell more work, and creating efficiency within his business by investing in equipment, and really unique processes and systems to generate a higher amount of work quicker. So to me, like that's where my brain somewhat goes, where it's like, well, rather than saying I want to increase my sales volume, what if I could find a way to make the same amount of revenue with 30% less labor put into it? So that's where my mind goes, where it's like, where could I invest that money to create better efficiencies within my business so I could either work less, or if I work the same amount, I'm going to be making 30% more money.
Right. I love that. I love that account because it's just, I mean, his content's great too, because it's like therapeutic watching, and I think that, I mean, just watching machinery, Build Wit, Aaron, our buddy, his content, I just sit there and watch these machines just like so easily handle material, whether it's tree work, site work, whatever. But I figured it would have something to do with your excavator.
Well, I mean, even like, I think he posted something today or I don't know, recently it came up where he's like, typically if you're climbing a tree, you're dropping everything so that the people on the ground can manage it in a certain way. And he's like, I don't have people on the ground. I have equipment on the ground. That's me. So he can basically drop everything however he wants, which is saving him time, more efficient, and then can get in a piece of machine that's like air conditioned and literally just pick it up with this attachment that he has, put it into a chipper, not move it twice, not have to sort it. And it's like, damn, it's a no-brainer. And you need the cash to be able to invest in the equipment, but it's like, you're
but
just
$100,000, like you're getting set up nice
for sure. And like, you also don't need 12 tree jobs a week to stay busy. You're not having people call out. You're not getting hurt. You're it's less wear and tear on your body. You're managing your risk, all in an industry where, like, I think that plays a huge part in it as far as insurance, safety, everything else. And to create efficiencies in what would seem to be like a brute task or just a very blue collar job. I mean, that'd be dope. Like if somebody offered that, I'm like, oh yeah, like this setup is legit.
I would love to think that I would spend the money on that because I love the idea of it. And personally, I told Meg the other day, I'm like, I think I might buy an excavator too. For what? I'm like, I got to fix the driveway up in New Hampshire. And she's like, and? I'm like,
figure it out after that.
By the time I spend the money and hiring someone, like I could have made 30 payments on that excavator.
Yeah, dude.
And then I could just rent it out or just not.
Yeah, or not.
And she's like, I mean, thinks I'm ridiculous. But where my mind goes, it's like, all right, someone hands me $100,000. What do I put it in? And all I'm thinking about is increasing lead generation.
Like it's marketing, right? So like you need to, you're just spending money, and then you're gonna you're getting money to spend money.
Yeah, and it's like I'm like, all right, how do I deploy $100,000 into marketing that I could 10x? Where it's like, what basically throw $100,000 at my biggest pain point in marketing. And my biggest pain point right now in marketing is one that I don't know the answer to, which is the fact that we are known, we're being brought to the table for these projects, and we're going. I mean, the fact that 5 times now I've been, we've bid work because they're really great projects and we want to be considered. And all 5 times the clients are like, you guys are amazing. Your communication is amazing. I love the way that you put together the proposal. You clearly understand how to do the job. all this stuff, and they outweigh all of that based on the fact the other guys built 40 homes. He's like, he's just done it 40 times.
But what's crazy to me though is that like your mindset and mentality for panelization is similar to what I'm saying, right? Where it's like you're creating efficiencies and spending money that are going to make you 10x on the back end, but then on the other side of the thing, you're like, I just want to drum up more work so that I could put more work in place, which is just going to cost me more money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't know, I think of it, it's a cabinet shop, right? Are you going to invest in a CNC? Are you going to invest in
100 grand in the cabinet shop, CNC for sure.
automation as far as finishing goes, where it's like there's I don't know the exact name of his business. I met with him once. He does like knock down cabinetry and stuff for his business, but he went from having like a dozen employees to having two, and instead of spending money on the employees, he spent money on all the automation with like the CNC, all the breakdown cabinetry, the finishing, where I'm like, so you spent on that once, and like you don't have people calling in sick, you don't have somebody spraying something different than the next guy spends it. And I'm like, to me, if you can afford it, that's the move, where it's like you are creating systems and processes where you can either put more work in place in the same amount of time, or it costs you less money to produce that one unit of work, which that's like a money printing machine to me when you can figure out those type of efficiencies. But yeah, on one hand, you're all about that with like AI and panelization and offsite construction, but on the other end, you're like, nah, just more work.
I was talking to Tim the other day, and you know, we were talking about like these social media brand deals, and he's just like a space he didn't really know. And I was explaining it to him. I'm like, the screwed up part is when a good brand deal comes around, and it's like, yeah, that's great. Like I get to make a little bit more money this year, and the initial thought is that goes into my bank account, and we deploy it within the family, and then I get the money, and then I deploy it right back into the business, and let's invest it in that. And what I was trying to get at with him is, it would be interesting to have mapped that out over time, where it's all of this reinvesting and how much money that I could have pulled out and just continued to keep like the baseline of the business, but instead I've put back in to know if have I really got a higher ROI on it, right? Like I'm basically like lending the money back to the business, but am I ever really paying myself back for it? Break even, or am I paying myself back at it with compounding interest?
Dude, the thing that's crazy about that too to me, and it's so hard to really wrap your head around, where I think about jobs in the past, right? Where it's like, I ate $5,000 there, I ate $10,000 there, and then you think about it at the end of the year, right? Where you're new in business, like most guys are trying to make $100,000 when they start their business.
Yeah,
and it's like, if right at the end of the year, say you made $100,000, and then you have like 150 grand worth of mistakes and fluff and burden and everything else, and it's like, if I wouldn't have made those mistakes, would I have made $250,000? Like, would it have just been that easy? And it's the same thing with you. It's like, if I didn't have that one expense, or if I were to have not put this back into the business, would I have made $500,000?
right.
And to me, like, it's not quite that simple. I mean, I think about it even, right, buying equipment, buying a truck. It's like, well, if I didn't buy that truck and I just kept my old truck, would I have another $100,000 in 5 years, or would I have just spent that on something else? It's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, and it's because I think it's the latter. I don't think you're not actually getting that money back, but it is, it's. I wonder. I mean, it's a personality thing, because I wonder: is there going to be a point in time in my life that all of a sudden I I don't deploy it back into the business as much, and then I just watch my personal income go up.
Well, yeah, and it's like if I didn't have that one expense for the past 10 years, would I just be in a completely different, like if it was just that simple? And to me, that's where it comes down to, like, fundamentally there's much more going on. If it's one thing that you have to fix, it would just be too easy, right? Like it's the incremental, just like we were talking about earlier. It's all of these little things that are going to add up to be the big things. If it were as simple as reducing this one cost of your overhead, or getting rid of just those receipts that you didn't track, or adding $15 to each employee, like, it would be so simple. It's just not.
And exactly, we were going through our overhead list the other day. We printed out all the transactions and we were highlighting things that we don't need anymore, and they were software pieces. Tyler, I'm talking like $20 a month software.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
texted you that about that like a month ago.
yeah, and they were, and he was like, "Hey, make sure you cancel that." Meanwhile, I have 2 vans that I've owned for 2 years, and one of them needs $18,000 worth of repair work. So instead, I took the other van, I brought it to Mercedes and traded them in, and now I have a $1,500 a month payment.
Yeah, that could be an excavator, dude.
No shit, but I'm like, thank God I saved that $20 a month, because now I'm
spending
another $1,500 for 2 new vans.
It
And
makes
I'm like,
it makes no sense.
And like you said, it's just, and when you said the incremental thing, I think from a personal level, when I was going through that, I was like, that when I had an overwhelming amount of mail, I'm just like, dude, there's so much. Like, I have like 6 credit cards that all have payments due coming up, and I'm like, I don't even know where I stand with that right now. And if it was just one credit card, I would know.
Yeah.
And it's like, not that I have no idea. Like, obviously I can log in and see it, but it just, we go through life and we compound all of these little things that just continue to add up. And, I was going through our transaction, and it's like, man, like Spotify, Apple TV, Netflix, Comcast, Disney Plus, Hulu. And I'm just like, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you get rid of cable, and then you're spending more for this, for 18 different streaming platforms. Then my 4-year-old fucking ordering $30 rental movies, and I'm like, for $35 you can buy it. Like, stop renting the movie.
Yeah, that other thing that I've never really have been able to wrap my head around, right? Where you have these like massive businesses, and like their overhead, right, is millions of dollars every year, and it's like, well, if you were just to cut $100,000 out, would you make $100,000 more?
Nope.
But it, like, you think that you would, right? Where it's like, yo, we could just get rid of $100,000 worth of overhead, and now I go from making $150,000 to $250,000 a year. It's just as simple as that, and like, it doesn't work out that way.
I think the only way it works that way is if you get rid of the 100 and you immediately take it.
Well, I also think that that's the reason why we continue to spend so much money, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, that's only X amount per month. And it, like, our overhead is already $1.5 million. So
1%.
What's another 80,000?
Right.
I mean, I was just talking to my buddy. He stopped by yesterday. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, but I talk to him every now and then. He's like, my overhead for my plumbing company's, $80,000 a month, and then I'm looking to pull in 130. So right at the end of the day, with like, I could be profiting $350,000 a year, and it's like good money. But at the end of the day, like, that's a big nut to be bringing in $80,000 worth of work every month, and you have 1 month where you're $10,000 low, or your sales aren't what they were, or you only sell 70 grand. Like, the risk there, like, the reward's great, but the risk is also really great. And like, 1 or 2 things go wrong, and the margins just aren't there for me personally to justify having that much risk and that much exposure. Where I think that there are ways to make a living within this industry where you don't need to expose yourself to that degree. And that's that's low on the scale of exposure for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, like, I think that you can do it with, like, you can make this happen with a lot less if you want to. And I think that people get caught up in the mix and, trying to compete with other people or compare themselves to other people. And I think that there's ways to do this more intelligently, where you don't have to necessarily put yourself in such a hole month to month, which would probably free you up a little bit, and reduce the level of stress and anxiety in your life.
Yeah, I think to kind of put a bow on that, if you're, I know you guys are listening and like, dude, this is my life right now. I'm stressed. I got an email yesterday. I actually want to respond to it before the end of the day, but he's like, I'm closing my business. I can't do this. I'm way too stressed out. And I was like, I can't respond to this like on my phone. I got to sit
Yeah.
down and like really chat with this guy. But it, this is it is like the first and most important thing you have to do is just shut your phone off, sit down with a piece of paper or whatever it is, and go item by item and just get your life, your business, whatever your finances, just in front of you. Where do you actually stand? Because that exercise will, create clarity. Whether it's more stress inducing or less stress inducing, it doesn't matter. At least there's actual clarity.
Yeah.
And I will say, you get all that information out and you don't know what your first move is, whether you can either work with a financial advisor to help you on that or use AI.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of the things I was messing around with is like, all right, I'm going to give it the information on my credit cards. Just like, hey, this is the interest rate. Here's the terms on the credit card. Here are here's my limits on each card. Tell me how I should, be managing my finances across these cards so I continue to earn points and leverage and build credit, but I'm not doing it foolishly. And come to find out, the card that I use as my primary card is the worst card I'm using. It's like, no, use that one only for this and keep your spend per month under this amount and move all of your primary purchases to this card because it's less APR, but you'll still earn the points.
It's I think it comes down to, again, a bunch of those little things. But it typically, it's not just one fix. And I think that
No.
even with regard to, the charge more money, where it's like, hey, I just got to charge more money for my employees. I'm going to add $10 to their hourly cost, where you think that that's going to make the fix. But if they use 1 hour inefficiently that day,
Gone.
right, you just made an extra $80. Like, you're paying much more for that employee than in 1 hour than you upped their rate throughout the day.
Right.
So it's like you have to focus on what you're investing into these projects and how you're managing people's time. You could charge as much as you want. If you're over executing, you're over delivering, you're not managing the amount of labor that's going into projects. Like, it's not always just the numbers as far as your hourly rate or what you're charging or your overhead or your markup or your margins. One last thing I wanted to dig into here, which I thought I can recall a specific instance where somebody brought this up, but do you ever feel guilty delegating tasks you used to do yourself, and how do you work through that?
No, I've never felt guilty about that, but I think it's primarily driven by the fact that just because I've delegated a task doesn't mean I'm going to like not step up and help. Like the times I do feel guilty is when, a big delivery or something that's kind of like shitty end of day delivery, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I have to leave because I have a meeting. And it's like, and then you get the classics like, oh, of course, delivery truck shows up and Nick can't help. Like,
Yeah.
I do genuinely feel guilty because if I didn't have to leave, I would hang out and just get it done. And I remember, White Oak was an example. There was concrete guys were on site. Hole wasn't prepped correctly for them, and they were kind of pissed, and they were like, this isn't our responsibility. I'm like, you're absolutely right. And I went and got a shovel, and it was freezing out, and I put my jacket and hood on, and I just sat there and I just dug the hole out by hand. And 10 minutes into it, all the concrete guys were like, all right, fuck it, we'll help. And they just all got in the hole, and we dug it out by hand, which it was supposed to be dug by an excavator. But I wasn't going to let these guys lose an entire day.
And you don't have an excavator.
And I don't have an excavator. Furthering the point, Meg.
No, I can specifically recall I shot a project with Fine Home Building once where I was up in the attic and we were renovating a kitchen, and we had to put a flush beam in, and it was all blown in cellulose. So it wasn't like enough of a job to get a vacuum in there. Like, it was one beam in the kitchen, so I just went up and like moved it all over, and the guy shooting it took like a pretty cool photo of me with like the light coming through the roof vent in the attic and sent it to me. And it like wasn't for their magazine, he just sent it to me. And I remember posting, this is years ago, like, that I'm proud to be on the tools, like no job task is above me. And a lot of people contradicted what I was saying or didn't agree with me, where it's like, as the owner of the business, your time is much better spent doing other things. And I agree with that. And I think that there are certain aspects of my job, right, especially when I'm charging a client a premium for my rate, that I don't need to be doing stuff like that. But I also think at the end of the day, it is important. Like, maybe it's not right. Maybe I can't charge a client my rate to go up and do that for an hour. Maybe that's a freebie, but I also think that it shows a lot to the people around you, to your team, that you're not above that, and that you're willing to, lace up your boots and get dirty. But I also think that like there's a lot of things that you should be willing to do or go to bat for your team, and not just put on somebody else because it's not what you want to do. I think that it has to be a calculated decision where financially or from like an opportunity cost, it doesn't make sense for you to be doing that type of thing.
Yeah. At the end of the day, don't ask someone to do something that you wouldn't do. Not saying that you have to do it, but if it's something you wouldn't do, then that's where I think there's a necessary guilt.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys are listening to this, we're going to be headed to Omaha this week, and hopefully you're joining us. If you're not, then you'll either have to get a last minute ticket by DMing Tyler or I and showing up in Omaha. And if that's not an option, then maybe we'll see you in Chicago in the fall. But I'm stoked to get to Omaha. This is what, our 7th summit?
Yeah, 7th. I just saw that today.
Bananas. So that's where we'll be this weekend.
All right, guys, make sure everyone signs up for the newsletter as well. Nick and I are looking to putting out a monthly workshop via Zoom. And if you want to get involved with that, if you want the link, if you want the schedule, if you want whatever resources we're going to be diving into on those workshops, the only place to get that is going to be through the newsletter. So make sure you sign up there. You can sign up moderncraftsman.co. We have links on the Instagram channel, whatever you need. There's a million ways to get on there. But definitely sign up for that newsletter.
Appreciate it, guys. Talk to you next week.
Trust my mama, you're no match for my bad karma.